ongoing fraud investigation of publicly funded social programs for children. No details about possible crimes were disclosed, though armed agents were seen at child care centers in the Minneapolis area on Tuesday. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 25 points, the Nasdaq dropped 223, the S&P 500 lower by 35. More at townhall.com.
You bought an RV, and you got an automatic discount from Progressive by bundling it with your home or auto insurance. That's great, but a serious word of warning every RVer should heed. You don't need to talk about things like dry weight or dump stations. And you don't need one of those expensive water filter straws either. Because the most extreme thing most RVers encounter is a campsite without hookups. So just enjoy yourself. And Progressive's automatic discount when you bundle your RV, boat, or motorcycle with your home or auto insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states or situations.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu, an elite CompTIA certification partner. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefits.
United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby insists a merger between his airline and rival American would benefit travelers, despite American's refusal to engage in negotiations.
The stock of both airlines soared 2 weeks ago when reports surfaced that Kirby had floated the idea of combining the two of the biggest U.S. airlines to the White House. Kirby says he had approached American directly about a tie-up, but it's unclear whether that was before or after the White House meeting. Days after the meeting in Washington, American shot down the idea of a merger, saying it is not engaged with or interested in any discussions regarding a merger with United Airlines. Rich Thomason, Washington.
The Federal Reserve will meet this week ahead of a looming leadership transition that remains fuzzy, and Wednesday's news conference will be closely watched for any clarification. News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters. A gunman has opened...
This program is brought to you in part by Ability Tree Experts. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professionals.
Call 281-441-4179.
Tune in to the Ray Massey Reverse Mortgage Show each Friday at 1 p.m. and Saturdays at 3 p.m. with Trabo Mortgage. Or call Ray directly at 855-266-1600 or online at reversemortgages4texans.com.
Jim Clouk, a.k.a. Check-A-Pro Joe here. Houston's best contractors, Houston's smartest homeowners. It all starts with the Check-A-Pro radio show. Now hear my show every Saturday at 7 a.m. right here on AM 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas.
Dan Patrick for my friend Louis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and pruned tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts and Louis Flory, my friend for over 40 years. Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. You know, pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms and allows the sun and fresh air into the canopy. Trees can be in distress several months without showing any signs, so don't wait to protect your investment at 281-441-4179, 281-441-4179, or visit their website at abilitytrees.com. Right now, Ability Trees is giving a deep root feeding with every tree prune. Ability Trees, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Hi, this is Paul Betancourt. Property values may have peaked, making 2026 a must year to protest your property taxes. Sign up with my excellent Betancourt tax advisor team at btanow.com, as our experienced senior property tax agents and customer service matter. The taxman says do it now.
Sign up with Betancourt Tax Advisors by going online to btanow.com or by calling Paul's professional property team at 713-263-6100.
Where should I begin?
Can we talk about this?
Say, what are you trying to say?
Beyond the usual controversial talk.
Blah, 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 blah,
Over there, man,
1, 2, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha.
Prepare yourself. Okay. For Craig.
Oh, yeah.
Preparing a mighty new spectacle here.
Articulate. Stimulating. Hit you right in the... there you go.
We start becoming a team right now.
This is the Craig Collins Show.
Lord Jesus. Oh, Lord, no.
Start talking. Talk fast.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Now your host.
He's a good man.
Craig.
That's right. It is the Craig Collins Show, KSCV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. Thrilled to be with you. So much stuff out there to talk about. And yet, the tail end of that show, on Just Before Me, the Chris X Show, involved a phone call from Peter. Peter is somebody on the left. And he said the manifesto written by the person that tried to kill President Trump proved to Peter that this person didn't have it in him to kill somebody. It is sort of surreal to hear anyone on the left say crazy stuff like that. I actually read the full manifesto. I kind of feel as though Peter didn't. And if he read anything, he read the very end part where the man actually seemed somewhat sad that he was likely to die trying to kill President Trump. Sad for himself, sad for his friends and family that he thought he was doing something that they would have liked or wanted to have done, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a bunch of mentions inside the manifesto that I don't want to read on the radio that definitively says the guy was willing to kill anybody. He didn't want to. He didn't have the staff inside the ballroom, per se, as targets. But if they got in his way in the manifesto, it says he would mow them down. He would kill them, and that he absolutely wanted to kill Trump. He actually felt like he had to act to kill the current president of the United States. It is delusional to hear people on the side of the aisle where they don't like the proof that there's a bunch of extreme crazy people on that side pretend as though the things that they're reading aren't actually the things that the rest of us are reading. Like they pick and choose in their brain. To me, it sounds kind of like some people, no offense to Peter, seems like a relatively a nice person outside of his insanity politically, but it seems like he occasionally forces himself to black out while reading a manifesto from someone that definitively says multiple times he had every intention, every desire to kill Trump, and even ridicules the security for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, saying that it should be stronger than it is, and it seems like it's not going to be a big deal, and he's going to get through it. He wasn't trying to send a message. He wasn't trying to demonstrate something in a casual way and potentially lose his life. He was trying to murder people. I don't know where that comes from, that broken insanity in people. So if you missed it, if you didn't hear the phone call, if you're just tuning in to the radio station now, if you just jumped in your car to drive somewhere, and you might be listening to me on another radio station. I'm on two stations at the same time in this city right now, which is cool. That's going to happen again a couple more times in about a week or so, a week and a half. Eventually, it'll stop happening. At some point, the Dana Show will be under a different umbrella. A different radio station will have that show, and then I won't be on two stations at the same time. I think that's all I can say right now, but probably you can read between the lines as to what that means. But before anything else, let's get to actual news. Now, but it's amazing to me, one last time, to hear the way that people self-edit the things they don't like about the side of the aisle they're on. It's the biggest reason you can't have a conversation. Kudos to Jimmy X for calling in and being ready to refute whatever the things were that were said, because it's such a denial that it's so difficult to fathom how that brain works to get you into those spaces. But all right, let's do this. First, there was quite a few big deal news stories today. The Quality Leering Center, as it was infamously known, eventually updated the sign to actually say the word learning. It was one of 20 different places rated in Minnesota. This seems to be something that should have happened a long time ago, but I have some Fox News press coverage of this, breaking news coverage of when it happened. Again, 20 different facilities, all of which featured by Nick Shirley when he went through and knocked on doors and showed the fraud and corruption and unapologetic version of it that existed so many parts of that city and that state, in Minneapolis and Minnesota. But here's part of that breaking news story from earlier today.
Large-scale raids targeting federal fraud currently underway. Federal agents seen leaving the Quality Learning Center. And Brooke Taylor has more on that and what they're looking for. Brooke, good morning.
Brooke, good morning.
Hi, Bill. Good morning. Yeah, we have had a photographer there at the daycare since this morning, capturing video of those federal agents just going in and out of the building, collecting evidence as part of the DOJ's fraud investigation in Minnesota. Take a look at this video here. Sources tell Fox that federal agents are raiding about 22 businesses across Minneapolis this morning.
Yes,
and
they
sources
are.
say,
and by the way, I know you can't see the video because it's radio, unless you're watching me on X at Radio Craig C or at KSEV Radio are two ways to follow us. That way, YouTube, Facebook, or not Facebook, YouTube and Rumble. I also broadcast there, so you can see the video in those places if you want. But it's just federal agents getting out of cars, walking into the Quality Learning Center and several other places like it, raiding these places. What do I hope they find? I can tell you exactly what it is, because it's not just proof that the Quality Learning Center itself committed a whole bunch of fraud. What I hope they find is the entirety of the playbook, the entirety of the template, the how-to guide on how this is being done, so they can disrupt it everywhere else in the country that it's likely happening. California has seen its own version of this with retirement homes and elderly care facilities that aren't real. But you're going to find this, I think, everywhere. And so I hope the goal, and I assume the goal of the FBI, is to do a lot more than just catch these individuals that are responsible for the fraud in these places red-handed. If they wanted to do that, they could have done it weeks ago. Hopefully they believe that what they're going to gain is information that arrests a whole lot more people, not just the people behind these facilities. That's my hope. I am someone who constantly says that I do think a whole lot more people need to be thrown in the hoosegow. We need to arrest a lot of people for a lot of terrible things they're doing. And actually, I was listening to Guy Benson today. I was actually working while listening to the show today, and I heard him basically say that he's upset that James Comey has been indicted a second time. A grand jury chooses to indict someone. If you're on one side of the political aisle, when someone on the opposite side gets indicted, usually the sentence is you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. It doesn't mean somebody's guilty of something. The legal process has to actually play out before inevitably you have the discussion as to whether or not someone is guilty of the thing that you at least showed a jury you think you can put together a competent case to prove they are guilty of it. It doesn't mean they said that the person is guilty, just that they think there's something here to at least be discussed in another courtroom at another date. But what I think is really interesting about this is that for anyone saying that this is political prosecution and that it happened to Trump, so it's happening to other people, and that's a bad look, no. What I actually think this is recognition of the time in which we currently live, meaning there have been 3 attempts to kill this current president. Not 1, not 2. It's essentially 1 a year at least. Authentic, real, intentional attempts to try to murder the person in charge or the person running for and was leading in all the polls. When that first shot happened, that miraculously Trump survived by turning his head at the right moment. Something the president often says was God intervening and keeping him alive. But nonetheless, after 3 attempts at this, you should probably indict people like a former FBI director who put up 8647 in stupid, stones and some stupid photo at a beach because it is calling for the death of that person. At least to some people, that's what that means. And they'll make the argument in a courtroom, and it might go a certain way. It might go a different way. He might not be found guilty, but there's no reason not to take these steps and go this road after a 3rd attempt on the president's life. Because at some point, you start to think that this is coordinated, that there's a whole lot of people creating these opportunities. I mean, most people are discussing how terrible the Secret Service did in creating a larger perimeter than inside that one room that led to that one staircase that would allow someone with the types of weapons that this deranged lunatic had to take the lives of the president, the vice president, and several members of his administration. A ton of the leaders of this country were all in the same room. So it's a horrific thing to think if it had actually been successful. Thank God it wasn't. But people are asking the question, like, why was it that easy? Why was someone capable of taking a shot or a couple shots at the president from on top of what would have obviously been a spot that a sniper might choose to use in Butler, Pennsylvania? Why did that happen? These are good questions. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not telling you that I believe 100% that it's the conspiratorial version of someone is allowing these things to happen. And the only reason I say that I'm not certain of that is President Trump keeps coming out and saying that he's satisfied with the information he's being given as to how things got to the point they got to, and how inevitably the end result of them was some people almost were capable of killing the current president of the United States. Like, if he's satisfied, it's hard to say that I'm not, but it's just confusing to think that this happens over and over again. So when you're talking about the indictment of someone in a former position of power within an organization that Dan Bongino has multiple times said was inherently politically corrupt when he and Kash Patel were asked to take charge of the FBI, of course, why not have a day in court? Especially if a grand jury does choose to indict these people, why not go ahead and do it? I never understood this during the accusations of the fraud in the 2020 election. I mean, I understand what people said as to why the system was trying to reject review of this information to hide the things that might have happened. But whenever I talk to someone who refused to believe that this was potentially an outcome that we would reach, that fraud did happen in the 2020 election, that Biden didn't get legitimately the amount of votes that he was that we were told he got, my argument is, why not at least let a courtroom do the full version of a trial on this? Why let it get thrown out? Why let someone say, we don't have jurisdiction over this, or whatever the other excuses were? Why not, for the sake of society, let it play out in a courtroom so we can watch? We decided who was guilty between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp via a court proceeding that we're able to watch. Why don't we do that more? What is the value of preventing some of these things? And honestly, again, I understand what people are saying. They knew they were guilty and they were hiding it. But this is an easy argument to make to someone on the other side who claims these things weren't happening. They claim there's no way that any of this stuff happened. How dare you claim that any of these things occurred? Well, why not do the whole court case? Just for everybody's benefit, just for us to all see the thing that you're claiming you can see so easily with so little information out there. Just let us fully flesh it out before we decide what's true and what's not. By the way, I do have audio of the current acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, who appears to be doing a pretty great job in his what might be an interim time in this position, announcing the indictment of Comey and the investigation into the post on social media that seemed to call for the murder of President Trump, or at least the removal of President Trump from a position of power, from the role of leader of our country. You decide which one. It certainly wasn't a kumbaya sort of thing that he just thought was silly. And his position being what it used to be, even more so, makes this something that I think deserves to at least be in a courtroom and discussed. But here we go.
The DOJ is giving an update on the second indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. Let's listen in.
Making a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States. Count 2, same day, May 15th, 2025, that the defendant, James Comey, knowingly and willfully transmitting in interstate commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill the President of the United States. Both of these counts carry a maximum term of imprisonment of 10 years. So I think it's fair to say that threatening the life of anybody is dangerous.
It's bad.
And potentially a crime.
I agree.
Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice.
It shouldn't be. These are all very basic things, again. And you can yell and scream and say, how dare we get to this point? How dare we, try to find all the different things that people potentially are guilty of who went after Trump with everything they had, because I don't care how much time we spend in courtrooms. I don't care. I don't care how many judges have to sit on benches and slam gavels and say yes and no to certain things and then get these things challenged to other courtrooms with other judges. It's not like I'm pressed for time. I love when people say, this is a waste, or this. Wait till we get to the end result. I wait till we wind up finding out if a jury actually finds Comey guilty of these things. That feels like a better moment to have a debate among ourselves as to whether or not this was legitimate in the first place. And if they throw everything out, we can talk about that too. But I'll never understand, especially when the significance of something is as high as it would be when it's the person currently in control of the entire country, and some say the entire world. But when someone is in a position like that and someone else seems to have threatened them, why not have your day in court? I don't get it, and I'll never get it. And honestly, after we watched something happen in Manhattan where people decided, even after they invented a felony charge, my favorite part of the Trump case where he was convicted of felony counts is that the judge told the jury before they deliberated that they didn't have to decide what other law Trump had broken to change a misdemeanor, charge to become a felony charge in New York. If you don't remember that case, the only way that they turned what would be a business-related misdemeanor into a quote-unquote felony, something a whole lot of people on both sides said was kind of ridiculous to attempt to do in the first place. But the only way they did that is they said he had to commit one crime in connection to another crime. And they actually told the jury, you don't have to figure out what that was. If you all decide individually that some other crime was being committed, even if it's a different one, but you all decide this in Manhattan, a place that overwhelmingly voted against Trump, well, then that's fine. Then that's a felony to us. It was a ridiculous case to begin with. And we can judge it based on its merit, based on what happened in the courtroom. We get the opportunity when that plays itself out. Did Trump deserve to have to go to a courtroom and fight those fights? No, I don't think he deserved it. I definitely don't think he actually was guilty of the thing they wound up finding him guilty of. And if they tried that case in, 100 places, 99 of them, I think outside of Manhattan, or maybe like the center of Chicago, would have actually found him innocent and not guilty and not found a way to turn it into a felony. But it still happened. We still got it in the courtroom. We all got to decide for ourselves, et cetera, and so on. And so I think that that's what needs to happen with this thing with Comey or anyone else, is we just need to do the rest of the process. And there's no reason not to actually go down those rabbit holes or investigate behind those things. We should just do all of those versions of extended conversation and extended scrutiny to anything like this for anybody. I would be fine if we did it the other way. Even if I was sure someone was innocent going in, I'm still fine with them trying the case, still fine with them going through it, because if it seems to be of enough interest to enough Americans, it deserves to at least have its day in court. All right, I want to play something else. I'm a little fired up today. As I said, I did a 3-hour nationally syndicated radio show from about 11 o'clock our time to 2 o'clock. Somebody called in at the end of the show yesterday and asked me how they were hearing me on 2 stations at the same time. And the radio magic answer to that question is nationally syndicated shows aren't usually live in a significant amount of the markets they air in. They're tape delayed. If you want to hear a live version of the Dana Show, you can actually go to Radio America's website. You can go to several other websites and listen to it when it's being created live, or you can download the podcast or find anything else. You don't just have to listen at the affiliate radio stations, whoever they are, whatever they might be for these shows. But I did enjoy that. Someone was like, how is this happening? Well, I did that show for 3 hours earlier in the day, and then I do this one show live with you here. But nonetheless, I want to play this. This is a collection of moments where guests of Nicole Wallace called President Trump a Nazi. Why does this matter? Why did someone create this? Wallace was interviewing J.B. Pritzker. They both sort of joked that no one calls Trump a Nazi, that it's not a thing the left does at all. So somebody decided to pull all the receipts. So you go from Wallace and her guest, that again is the governor of Illinois, saying that nobody does this thing, and then you hear guest after guest to Nicole Wallace. They could have done this beyond that one show and found a ton of other examples of a ton of other Democrats saying that Trump's a Nazi. They didn't need to try that hard. they could just pay attention to this one program hosted by this one person and the myriad of guests that she said that she heard make that claim that she claimed nobody was making. So let's go ahead and hit play on that audio.
I haven't suggested that Donald Trump is Hitler. I wouldn't say
I don't think any Democrat has. I actually, and I think it's a smear that they project back on to critics.
What is the natural extension, Justin, if he pursues this to Harvard and beyond?
There was an authoritarian leader several decades back called Adolf Hitler.
Ding.
Hitler came to power and the scientists left.
The military survive in that climate.
In the same way that it happened in Russia with Stalin, the same way it happened with Hitler, eventually you get generals and admirals that are in there that only tell the leader what he or she wants to hear.
To the extent that the rule of law and an assault on the rule of law was an obscure, intangible thing, we're now seeing it in action.
If you look back in history, you can see very similar parallels taking place that took place in other countries that really went down that authoritarian road, including in pre-World War II Nazi Germany when Hitler and Nazi officials basically took over Frankfurt University, which was the bastion of independent thought and progressive thinking and independent thinking, which is what Hitler didn't want. And so again, this is what authoritarians do. They try to control all of the aspects of social life.
When Trump talks about peace and Putin talks about peace, it's autocrats getting their way. That's it. And Mussolini and Hitler said they were being the purveyors of peace.
I resisted for a long time analogies to Hitler's Germany. I've got in my Substack today, though, it's really uncanny. The same episode where Hitler...
By the way, that guest put it in his Substack. So now it's obviously very important. It was written onto the internet, not just said out loud several times. And if you're watching the video on any of the streaming platforms, you saw I didn't even play all the videos. There were more guests calling Trump a Nazi on Nicole Wallace's show on whatever they call MSNB DNC now. I don't even know what they call it anymore. I don't care, MS Now or whatever it is. But nonetheless, this is just that one show, that one host who books her own guests or has people book her guests and then tailors questions to get people to say out loud on her program that Trump's a Nazi, that Trump is Hitler, which, of course, people on the right don't remotely agree with and think it's insane. And I'll actually say this matters. Trump can't freaking build a ballroom at the White House. That's how not Hitler, not a authoritarian dictator he is. He wants to build a room as an extension of the White House, something they've already destroyed part of in order to build something better there. And they can't do it because our court system and the fighting and all the crap that is the political system that we currently have is preventing him from doing it, and they're still calling him Hitler at the same time that they're watching that happen. And now they have a glaring example of how important it would be to have a ballroom at the White House be as secure as it is. They have every reason to say out loud that, man, we really should make this, but we're still not going to let him because we don't like him. We don't want him to have any credit for it, even if he'd barely be able to use it. Trump would be in office maybe a couple months before his term would be over, in which the completion of this room would allow for its use at all. But they don't want the legacy of Trump having built that room even remotely tied to him. I bet you they build it if they can prevent it throughout Trump's entire term as soon as he's out of office, or at least they attempt to build it as soon as he's out of office, like all the other times we've seen that game happen. One last thing. I should take a break. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it yet. I think a lot of this audio is pretty interesting. Multiple people came out to defend Jimmy Kimmel. Celebrities. I have audio, but I don't think I'm going to play it, of George Clooney trying to say that he loves the press, that he's a child of a member of the press, his father, a part of the press. So obviously he thinks so highly of them and so little of Trump, and he thinks that Kimmel is just a comedian. But then immediately it sways from, is he a comedian or is he a journalist who's being silenced and has a First Amendment right to report on certain things? They can't decide on the left which one it is. But that wasn't the only person. Clooney wasn't the only person out there doing that. You had Gayle King on CBS very quickly saying that she thought that this obviously wasn't the horrible, terrible thing that so many of us evidently know that it was. Kimmel purposefully said that he saw Melania Trump as a, quote, glowing widow or the glow of a widow without explaining, without additional jokes about Trump's age or anything else, because he wanted to create the excuse that he was just talking about Trump being older than Melania, when in reality, he wanted the joke to land, someone who had had 2 attempts on his life already by the time that he's making this joke on television, as if someone else were going to try to kill him. That's exactly the intention. You know it, and I know it, and the Democrats know it, even if they refuse to accept it. And Kimmel created the opportunity to give himself an excuse if and when someone else tried to kill President Trump, which happened mere days after he made that joke on television. Disgusting that this is a thing. But here is Gayle King saying that, of course, Jimmy Kimmel, a great guy.
The joke was made before the correspondents' dinner. Jimmy Kimmel's not some crazy person who would wish the president to be killed. He just would not do that.
It's ridiculous. Why would anybody say that? He would never do that, even though he seems to have made several jokes about hoping at some point that Trump is dead. Actually, I went back and I found the audio, and I contemplated playing it, but part of me thinks that people would say it's disconnected enough, and I don't want to make light at all, personally, of people attempting to kill Trump. But I went back and found the audio of all the people who made jokes about wishing Trump would die when they thought he had COVID, when they thought that he was going to get sick enough during his first term when he's being flown to Walter Reed to die while at the hospital. Jimmy Kimmel is among the people who made a tremendous amount of jokes being, aw, shucks, too bad, he actually survived and lived. And they pretend as though they don't call for the person's death. We also have Jake Tapper of CNN, of course, saying how Kimmel's a great guy and this is journalism, not necessarily comedy, although it's also comedy. I'm confused. You decide.
It is a big problem of calls for violence and dehumanization, and it's getting worse. But it is not a problem to be wielded like a cudgel to try to stop journalism or jokes. Journalism and jokes are not calls for violence. Calls for violence are calls for violence. And far too many Americans in positions of power and influence are too blasé and too glib about those who make them.
Look, you know what's crazy about him saying that calls for violence are calls for violence? If you said out loud the exact sentence that Jimmy Kimmel said out loud, the glow of an expectant widow, most people would say that sounds like a call for violence. But because he's Kimmel, because he can claim that isn't a call for violence, even though by definition it certainly appears to be. All right, I want to take a break. After the break, I'm going to play some tough audio, some audio that's definitely probably off the beaten path for some. This is a Texas politician, Brandon Gill, doing a grilling of someone in Washington, where he's asking someone who's giving testimony to Congress to describe their, quote, favorite type of abortion. He's purposefully being extreme and demonstrating the lack of humanity that exists within this conversation and the people who disregard the horrific nature of some of the things they seem to be a proponent of. And the reason I want to play it after the break is you can hear the witness as she's being grilled and sort of put in this position she refuses to be in, get incredibly uncomfortable about the idea that she's going to continue to advocate for the things she's advocating for, because denial of this reality is a needed aspect of the stance that people have when they talk about this issue, the freedom of choice or the right to life. When you talk about it a certain way, you need to deny some of the realities of the thing you're saying if you're on the side that's okay with babies getting killed. We will take a break. We will talk about that in just a bit. Again, it's not easy audio to listen to, but I do think it was an excellent version of questioning, because it lays to a pretty extreme nature the reality of the situation. It doesn't hide behind any of those simple talking points and then let's move on. So it does seem to have a tremendous amount of value to me, and it's a Texas-based politician, so that's the reason to do it when you work at KSEV Radio, the voice of Texas, and KGBC Radio, the voice of Texas. More coming up in a bit.
You know, where we go in life matters, and what we do matters, and we know that taking the wrong road won't produce the best outcomes. Hi, I'm Kathy with Baker Mortgage. And we want you to take the right path when it comes to your mortgage. You know, we live in a world of information overload, but always consider the source. And these are not generally going to be from your big bank or a random offer that comes across your screen. Remember, you're always going to get a better deal on one that you go looking for than one that comes looking for you. You need to deal with somebody who gives a you-know-what, whether or not you're happy in the end. At Baker Mortgage, we do it right. We haven't been around for 68 years because we're lucky. We don't sell CDs, insurance, or anything else. We just provide a great mortgage experience. Isn't that what you're looking for? Call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License number 263213.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate. Our country's founding fathers drafted a document that is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. My friends at O'Hara & Company Real Estate, we believe we're at a precipice in time where we must take back our country. We must stand up for our freedoms or lose them forever. Please don't sit idle and let it slip away. Don't let anyone force you to do something you choose not to. As JFK said, if not us, who? If not now, when? If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393, 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. I'm Kevin O'Hara. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Hi, I'm Tommy Mello with Garage Door Doctors. My mom recently moved into a new home with a builder-grade garage door. Noisy, flimsy, and not built to last, so we're fixing that. Mom, you're my hero. When I was growing up, she worked 3 jobs just to save our house.
And helped you build this company.
Now I'm giving her a beautiful new garage door that's built to last. The garage is 40% of your home's curb appeal. When it looks good and it works great.
Life is good. Thanks, Tommy.
From repairs to upgrades, call Garage Door Doctor today.
Matches back here in the Mac Z-Cliner. I'm recovering from surgery thanks in large part to this miracle chair, the Mac Z-Cliner. You can sit in it, you can recline in it, you can watch TV in it, you can eat in it, you can sleep in it. It goes to zero gravity position. The Mac Z-Cliner helped me recover. It also has heat and massage, a place to charge your cell phone. Come out to Gallery Furniture, buy a Mac Z-Cliner before your surgery. Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, or after your surgery, Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, and you'll sit and sleep great tonight.
You're an advocate for abortion, for abortion policy. What's your favorite type of abortion?
I am an advocate for patients having access to the full realm of reproductive health care.
But do you have a preferred method of abortion that you like?
I do not.
Let me read through a couple different methods, and I want to get your take on how much you like these. The first type is called a suction abortion. This is when the cervix is dilated and a strong suction, 29 times the power of a household vacuum cleaner, tears the baby's body apart and sucks it through the hose into a container. Do you prefer that method?
I stand by my former testimony.
This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. I warned you before we took the break that this is pretty graphic. This is a Texas-based politician, Brandon Gill. He is a Congress member of a northern Texas district, a congressional district here in this state, asking Ms. Waters about her position on reproductive rights, as she calls them, and also the graphic and terrible thing that is the reality of abortion. And I think a lot of people hate this version of a discussion because it outs the main point from the opposition, from the other side, about how, you know, the right to life is important and babies' lives are important. There's no better way to say it, but I'm going to play a little more of this because no matter how difficult it is to listen to, since it's a Texas-based politician and this is a Texas-based radio show, the voice of Texas, it is also, I think, an intelligent way to go about framing an argument that some people want to pretend is just a simple procedure and nothing else and not a big deal at all. Here's a little bit more of that back.
That sounds kind of gross, doesn't it? Sounds pretty gruesome.
Yes, it does.
Do you agree? It does to me.
I stand by how I answered your question fully and accurately.
Okay, what about this one? This one is called dilation and curettage. After dilation of the cervix, a sharp looped knife is inserted into the uterus. The baby's body is cut into pieces and extracted, often by suction. Do you prefer that method?
What I believe we are here to talk about today is the FACE Act. We are not here to talk about
I'm asking
the
you, you're
legality
a
of
pro-abortion advocate. I'm asking if you prefer the...
Yeah, I would like to have an actual conversation about a thing in an honest way, in an earnest way, in which you face the reality of the thing you say you're a proponent of. You include all the variables in the discussion. Because as I've said multiple times in this show, one of the things Democrats are the biggest fans of, unfortunately, of anybody out there in the world, is leaving variables out of discussions. They don't want to talk about all the aspects of something because of how difficult it is to maintain their position during that back and forth debate or whatever you want to call it. This is, again, and I'm probably done. There's other graphic descriptions of abortion itself. But nonetheless, this to me feels like the kind of thing where finally you're having the real, the actual no pieces left off of it, a version of a debate about what's right and wrong, what should be right and wrong, and why people believe what they believe. Because when someone who's pro-choice winds up debating someone who's pro-life, this is the avenue they least want to go down in that conversation. As you're seeing from this witness testimony in front of members of Congress, that the person being asked the questions has no interest in even responding to them because there's no valuable human response that makes any sense. And I do think it paints the picture quite well as to why people believe what they believe about the right to life. All right, let's do something else. This is the acting AG, Todd Blanche, vowing that he's going to work as hard as he can to get the ballroom done, to get it through whatever legal channels it's being held up for. After the third attempt at killing the president, one in which the White House ballroom would have absolutely prevented the closeness that this person got to harming people that are in charge of our country, regardless of who they are. The next administration after this one would potentially have the same challenge, and they'd have it solved by having a ballroom, the one that, Trump has been talking about wanting to build for a while. So this is something that helps a lot of people, even if you refuse to accept it. Blanche takes a question and gives an answer about how important it is to get this done.
Thank you for taking my question. You personally have called for a construction of this ballroom at the White House. The president has called for this as well. Today, the National Trust president put out a statement, says that they're grateful that everybody's okay, but, and I quote, "We are not planning to voluntarily dismiss our lawsuit, which endangers no one, and which respectfully ask the administration to follow the law. Ballroom construction is continuing unabated until June 5th at the earliest because the injunction is on hold." Where does the Justice Department go from here? And then I have a follow-up on that.
Well, we filed a motion today asking the court to do what the plaintiffs refused to do. We absolutely believe that there is no better example of why this ballroom is necessary, aside from all the very positive things the ballroom will bring to this country and to Washington, D.C., than what happened on Saturday night. You guys, many of you all were there. That's one of the only places in D.C. that you can hold an event like that due to its size and the structure of what we need.
Yeah, it's a simple, logical argument. There's no reason to say no to this, essentially, is what the argument is, or at least the way it's being made in that statement. Why are we saying no is the question, and there's no valuable answer. And the hanging it up is all to do with Trump and not liking Trump. I do want to play one last thing, and then we'll take a break. We'll come back, and we'll have a little bit of fun before we get out of here. It's a 1-hour show. I filled in for Dana today. She does something called the Quick Five. I'll continue to give her credit as I steal that segment and do something I call the Quick Four-ish at the tail end of the show, which is just sillier topics, nothing serious. But this is a Somali activist in Minnesota at the state capitol as locations are being raided that are tied to fraud that came from the Somali community, saying, we built this economy, taking credit for believing that the Somalian people are so important to Minneapolis and to Minnesota. And how exactly are they important? How did they get the money to do the things that she's claiming they did? Well, they took it from a whole lot of taxpayers. Here we go.
So Somalis brought more than just built they didn't just build the economy, but we contribute to the soul of this great state. And I want to remind you that no human is illegal.
No
ever.
human is illegal,
You are not
ever. And nothing we do is illegal, it feels like she also wants to say there. All the fraud we did is also not illegal. Why would anyone think that it is? Why would that be a bad thing at all? We built this community. We gave the money back because we bought stuff after we stole money. So really, you should be thanking us. Of course, that's an incredibly insane and crazy thing that she said. But that's testimony that went viral because a whole lot of people are like, I just want my money back. I just want all the money you stole to be given back to us so we can have it. And so we don't have to operate all these fake child care and elderly care centers that had nobody in them. All the ones they shut down in California, no one made any phone calls complaining about them because it's just stolen money. And yes, you can be guilty of breaking laws, even if she says you can't. And you can be guilty of stealing stuff, even if I imagine she thinks that's also not true. A quick break and then some fun. It's the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the fastest hour in radio on the Voice of Texas. More coming up in just a bit.
If you have roof problems, you can sure see them when it rains. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing. If you see a leak, call me immediately, 281-251-0304. I'll send over the Tejas Roof Repair truck.
That truck has everything our experienced crew needs to fix your roof, right then and there.
The Tejas Roofing crew has been working together fixing leaky roofs for 15 years.
It's not a pretty truck, but it has everything we need to get the job done. I kind of like the way it looks.
Most roofing repairs cost less than $500. Why? Because we find the cause of the leak and repair that leak. We won't try to sell you services you don't need.
And we'll fix it right away because everything we need is in our truck.
Don't put off fixing a leaky roof. Call me at Tejas Roofing and I'll send over the truck. 281-251-0304. When you think of roofing repairs or a new roof, think Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. 281-251-0304. That's Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
Plumbing emergencies never happen at a convenient time. Usually they happen on the weekends, holidays, or while you're away on vacation. I'm Richard Sod, president of Nick's Plumbing. When you find yourself facing a plumbing emergency, call the licensed and experienced professionals at Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services. Nick's Plumbing has been Houston's first choice for all your plumbing needs since 1979. Our experts can take your most difficult plumbing issues and fix them fast, fix them right, and usually for less than you'd expect. Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services is the right choice for any plumbing job, from a leaky faucet, whole house repipe, or a complete sewer line replacement. You can count on Nick's Plumbing to do the job right. With over 40 years in business and over 150,000 satisfied customers, Nick's wants to be your plumbing company. Nick's Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-868-9907, or visit us on the web, nicksplumbing.com.
NPL 38548.
Call Nick's Plumbing today. We're on the way.
A breast cancer diagnosis can turn your world upside down. But your Houston Methodist team assures you they'll use the latest cancer research and technologies, collaborating to treat and remove the tumor and reconstruct your breasts, restoring symmetry, sensation, and your sense of self. That's the difference between practicing medicine and leading it for you. Houston Methodist, leading medicine.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm, and Chuck McDowell definitely not an attorney. This is Chuck. If someone talked you into buying something really silly and you want to get out of that silly little thing, my advice, get the facts. Call me and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit absolutely free. Inside, you'll learn how timeshare works and all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free exit information kit. 800-909-9696. 800-909-9696.
This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the Voice of Texas. I should promote some of the places you can find me more. It does air on that little spot that I cut that gets played every so often. But you can find me at Radio Craig C. That's at Radio Craig C on X or Facebook. Facebook has a decent following for something I don't really try very hard at. The Twitter page is getting bigger and bigger. The X page still relatively small, though. But you can follow me at those places. You can watch the show every day on X. And then also you can listen to the podcast. Look up The Craig Collins Show. There have been some other ones before. You might find some old things from other places I used to work. But by and large, you should find the new one. And I'm not trying to brag or make anyone else at this station feel bad. It's a weird thing to say. It's sort of probably most likely because of some of the other places I have access to occasionally as a radio host. But I broke 8,000 downloads, which is not a lot, by the way. People like Bongino get millions of downloads for their podcast, but I broke 8,000 for a recent episode of the show, and I just want to thank you. Anybody who listens, anybody who pays attention to that, who downloads it and consumes it, because that's awesome. That's actually really good for all the things we're putting out here at KSEV. So thank you to anybody here in Texas, apparently Florida, and also Illinois that still listen to my show quite a bit from places I used to work. But a whole lot of people in Texas downloaded the Craig Collins Show, available wherever you get your podcasts. I think iHeartRadio did pretty well. But anyway, it's a weird thing. I don't mean to brag. I hate doing that kind of stuff. But I do want to say that it was kind of a cool mark that I had not broken before for individual downloads and impressions for a specific episode of a show. So that was pretty great. The IRS, these are quick 4-ish topics, more fun. The IRS paid out $296 billion in refunds this year. That is up 17% from last year. It appears that many of the things that the Trump administration put into play are working. Things like no tax on tips or no tax on overtime, et cetera, et cetera. The average person got about 333, weird number, more dollars than they did last year, 3,275 compared to 2,942 last year. But as I said, a lot of people made a whole bunch of money, $296 billion in total refunds paid out, which is up almost 20%. That's great. That's the kind of thing we want a whole lot more of. This story comes out of Florida. 2 teens decided they wanted to joyride on a lawnmower, and they thought that just driving on the street or anywhere else wasn't good enough. So they went to their local Target and drove through the Target establishment on a lawnmower. I had 2 immediate thoughts about this, and I have some audio of a witness that I'll play in a second. The first one being that Target was the wrong choice. At Walmart, enough people ride around in those rascals that I wonder if a lawnmower really wouldn't have been thought twice about. You see somebody driving through with that instead of sitting on one of the little carts that they allow you to sit on, and you're like, well, I guess that's fine. Not as easy to put your groceries in a lawnmower, but I imagine they might have ignored it. I feel like you get away with this at a Walmart. You don't get away with it at a Target, especially in Florida. But here is a witness saying how odd it is to be shopping and see somebody come through on a lawnmower.
He actually drove straight into the door first and shattered it. It was quite interesting. You never know what's going to happen. I think they're teenagers. They definitely got the consequence that a lot of people think they deserve.
Yeah, they got arrested. That's not legal. You're not allowed to do that. You get in trouble. You get the book thrown at you as much as it can be thrown at you for driving a lawnmower through an indoor establishment it's not supposed to be in. And also, as she said, breaking a window. But nonetheless, again, I just kept thinking that Walmart, probably seen it before. Target, not so much. $50 movie tickets are now a thing. Another story that I saw out there, Dune Part 3 sold IMAX tickets in certain locations throughout this country, Regal Cinemas in big cities like here in Houston, where some of the tickets cost $50. The craziest thing is it also sold out in any of those places. So it appears as though people really wanted to see Dune 3 because I'll tell you, I got my tickets to the Yankee game for less money than that $50. I use a special app, or well, it's not all that special. A lot of people know about it. It's called Game Time. You can buy tickets just before the game starts. You can actually buy tickets, I think, up to an hour and a half after the game has started on that app. And baseball now only takes about 2.5 hours. So if you bought it right before the end of the close, you're not going to see a whole lot of baseball. But I paid less money than $50 per ticket to go watch the Yankees play the Astros here. I would never pay $50 for a movie ticket. That's insane and idiotic. I don't get it. That's as crazy as the stuff that I talk about in the world of politics. You can do a lot more things even still in the society we live in with $50. A somewhat adult topic. Whenever I did these at past radio stations, I used to warn you to earmuff the kids. I'm going to do it appropriately. I'm not going to, do anything that's inappropriate here, but there is an adult component to this. I saw a story about how more and more bars and establishments like them are complaining that trivia night isn't as successful as it used to be. A lot of people are saying that the cell phone has ruined bar trivia, that all the teams get all the answers right all the time and all claim they're not cheating, but all of them are probably cheating. So a new trend has popped up, at least in Washington, D.C., where one bar is now doing naked drawing nights. This is where you have an actual model show up in the nude, and then other people show up at the bar to draw the person like an art class, but done in a bar establishment. I have to tell you that my first reaction to this story, other than the inappropriate nature of it, is how disgusting of a place that has to be. A bar with probably the sticky ground kind of stuff, all the things you're picturing of a dive place that's not doing that well, that's being desperate in how it's trying to figure out a way to get people to show up and get drunk there. And this seems to be the worst of those ways. So I feel uniquely bad for the models who choose to be naked in these establishments. Not a smart move. This is the kind of thing that hopefully someone in their life tells them, you probably don't want to do that, but you especially don't want to do it there. That seems like the wrong place to do that sort of thing. Am I shocked that it's a Washington, D.C. bar that went viral for being the first place to try this and claim that other bars should do it because it works better than trivia night? No, I am not shocked that D.C. is where this happened. Again, I'm just saying definitively on the record, probably not something you should do for anyone contemplating it, no matter how much the check is for the weird drawing night at the bar. And also part of me was wondering how you could possibly tell people you're going to go to that. You're like, oh yeah, I'm doing an art class night at my local bar, and there's going to be someone that's going to show up naked, and we're all going to draw that person. That doesn't sound like the kind of thing that won't inevitably involve the cops. You feel like the cops are being called pretty quickly in to that evening. All right, one last one. Definitely not as adult as the last one. I just thought this was interesting too. Some people on social media are claiming that if you fly with your family and part of your family is younger kids, that you should wait till last to board the plane. That it doesn't matter where you are in the list, doesn't matter when they tell you to board, that you shouldn't do it, that the thing you absolutely should do is just wait till the end and board at the end. The reason they say you'll do this is that it'll be easier on the kids. They'll be able to get to their seats without annoying anyone behind them. And also it'll be easier on you, easier on all the other passengers. I think I could be talked into either side of this. I think that when your number is called for the plane, go ahead and board if you want to board. I'll deal with whatever the thing is of having, young kids in front of me that might be trying to resist getting on the plane in the first place. That's fine. I can live in that world. I can handle that. And also, if you want to wait until the end, that's fine too. Again, as I said, I can be talked in to either side of this thing. It's a choose your own adventure for you, the person choosing to do this. It's not something where I'm going to tell you that I believe I know what the right and wrong thing is to do. That's on you. It's totally option one or option two, and more power to you if you want to be so respectful of other people that you wait to board last no matter where you are on the plane. All right, that's it. That's the whole show. I'm out of here. Craig Collins, KSEV, KGBC, the fastest hour in radio. Thank you again to everybody who downloaded the podcast. As I said, we broke 8,000 for the most recent episode, or one of the most recent episodes. Awesome. The Craig Collins Show, if you want to check it out on whatever podcast platform you're on. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. That's KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas.
You're listening to the voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV Tomball and AM 1540 KGBC Galveston.
I believe, Mr. Speaker, is more important today than it has ever been.
He spoke of the importance of alliances, especially NATO.